Hey guys, it's Mark here. Welcome back to Nine Empire. Now in this episode, we do a teardown of a 318 small block Chrysler to diagnose what went wrong. How bad could it be? G'day guys, so here we are in the messy Iron Empire shed, and I've decided that I'm going to change it up today. I was initially going to sit down for the day, it's my editing day, and edit a bunch of scrapbook footage that I've got over the last month or so of the wannabe Sandman down at Jake's workshop, Jake's chop shop. But honestly, it's that point in the build where nothing's happening. Like there's stuff happening, but nothing's exciting. It's just dribs and drabs, boring crap, nothing exciting. And I was itching. I've done a bit of a cleanup here yesterday, not that it may look like it, and I thought, I need to get onto this 318. I've got a little 318 that come out of our 1970 Dodge Dart, and it's got some issues. And I keep thinking about this motor, and I was like, you know what? We're gonna change it up today. We're gonna do a live, unedited. It's not gonna be live, and it's gonna be edited, but we're gonna do a more of a real-time video on this thing as I diagnose it. I'm not going to be doing any major teardown. Maybe I will, but I don't plan on doing any major teardown. I don't plan on doing any building on this, but I'm going to diagnose this live, sort of. So we're going to pull this down together. We're going to have a look at what the hell is going on with this thing. We have some major issues in this little small block, and I'm hoping that it's not going to turn into a catastrophe. So let's do a bit of a tidy up. I'm going to clear this bench. We're going to get set up, and then we're going to get stuck into this motor. Okay guys, so we are now kind of cleaned up, kind of set up. I've got the workbench I can work with here, got the engine here awaiting the attention. Hopefully you all can hear me nice and clearly. Okay, so this thing came out of the car months ago. Don't even know how long ago, but it was a while. We done a video pulling this thing out. We noticed very quickly that there was end play in the crank. I noticed that when I was trying to pull the thing out from the harmonic balancer. And you'll see here, hopefully, or hear it, so that's free play back and forth. After doing a bit of research, I did find that these small blocks did have a thrust bearing, I think it's called. So basically one of the bearings on the crankshaft has basically shoulders on the side which hold the thrust back and forth. I'm hoping that that is worn out of the bearing and it hasn't actually started touching the crank on the block, because then we could be in trouble. So today's plan is just to diagnose how knackered this motor is, and so we can try and put it back together on the cheap. Of course, I always go the budget option, not because I'm a tight ass, but it's because we've got too many cars to try and build. So if I just get them all on the road and drivable, it's a better position than I am now with cars everywhere and engines everywhere. So what I'm going to do is, because this thing is so grimy, it's disgusting. The motor is filthy. It's meant to be blue at the front here, although it's not the correct blue. Someone's painted it blue. The rest of it is black. It's leaked a lot of crap all over the floor over the last few months. And I don't even know if I've dropped the sump plug. No, it's still full. So we're going to have to make a bit of a mess here this morning. But before I do flip it upside down, I want to pull these valve covers and just see what sort of valve train we got going on here. I know that very early small blocks did run adjustable rocker gear, is that right? Adjustable solid lifters. I'm not an engine guru, bear with me guys. I know that, well, I think that my VG with the 318 has solids in it, and that was a common upgrade, like a budget upgrade, where people would put the solids from a 273 in them to get a bit of performance. This is, you know, back in the day when maybe people were doing it on a budget like I am, or performance parts weren't readily available. I can see this being painstaking already, guys, so if this is going to be a long-winded video, I apologise already, but we're going to try and do this somewhat unedited. Also, you may have noticed me working on a little mini bike briefly there. I actually bought that little mini bike from a place here in Adelaide called Paramount Browns, which is like the American, like the Aussie equivalent of the American Harbour Freight, I suppose. I guess, something like that. And it's just like a little Chinese sort of Coleman mini bike rip-off. And of course I broke it. And then I recently fixed it last night only. So it's a handy little bike for me to shoot down the bottom of the paddock or do some running around. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here to see the damage. Alright, so it's definitely got a hydraulic in it, which we knew anyway, but it's got a hydraulic. Probably stock is an absolute rock. This is my paint bench, but we're going to use it today. I try not to put dirty stuff on here, but you get that. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of close up and then put it back in place, but basically it looks like that one there may have been replaced at some stage. I wonder if that's for any reason. That one's really clean. The rest are pretty grubby. Pretty carboned up, sooty. This would usually happen from lack of oil changing, lack of maintenance, servicing. So when obviously carbon is built up from an engine, a running engine, and then that will build up and basically turn the oil carbon to sooty, and that's why you get this black gunky shit. And it's not that bad, but probably what you'd expect from a motor of this age. And who knows what sort of condition. But yeah, we're going to pop the other side off just to see in case I'm checking all the rockers, feeling for slack just in case I was like, you know, knackered cam, even though I would have known that anyway. But these little retainers are so annoying. So obviously when you're doing a motor pull down, you'd usually pull off all the basics first, all your bolt-ons, all your accessories, your drive, your carby, your stuff like that. But what I'm doing today is just sheer fault finding, so I can order some parts and at least order some basic parts just to get the ball rolling. So most important thing is getting to that underside. There's one left. There's nothing worse than watching people work on classic cars with a metric tool. This is Imperial, guys, so we need Imperial tools, Imperial sockets. We're working in inches. Don't round your nuts. This side's actually cleaner. So all I'm doing here is rocking the gear back and forth, and they will feel pretty good. So cam and lifters, all that sort of shit should be fine. The car did run fine. It was a quiet motor and all that sort of stuff, surprisingly, considering the bottom end has some things going on. But yeah, we'll find something to drop this oil into. Oh, maybe I did drop this oil because this is finger tight. Oh yeah, she's been dropped. Thank fuck for that. one job down. That's a handy little surprise. Oh man, I always feel nervous on these bloody engine stands, eh? It doesn't feel great. It does not feel great. Especially these ones with one wheel at the front. This is danger zone, man. Oh shit! I'm hearing squishing. I think it's water in the water pump. It's gonna come out. No, nothing's coming out yet. Man, this thing is so filthy. It's disgusting. I don't know how people can drive this. We were driving it. Alright, so far it's not making any... It's not making a mess yet. It will. Alright guys, now something interesting about this car, not this motor in particular. Hopefully you can see me. I feel like I'm in a bad angle here. Now we had some of the best and worst times in this Dodge Dart. The thing failed us more than it succeeded, but there was never an engine issue. This thing always fired like that when everything was right. And I was constantly chasing an issue. I don't actually even know what it was to this day. But we done a 1900k road trip in this thing, and it took us days and days and days because I was fighting this thing the entire way. But like I said, when everything was working right, this thing fired to life. You'd hardly touch the key and it was running. So I'm not sure if it was an electrical issue or a fuel issue, but it was breaking down something chronic. I'm just looking at the fuel pump here. I remember replacing the fuel pump. It doesn't look like it's a new one, so I'll probably end up swapping the old one back onto it. There was a lot of fault finding. Also, alternator, I reckon I ripped this from my VG, just trying to find issues. But the underside of this motor, as you can see, is so gunky, it's disgusting. But for now, we're not going to deal with that. We're just going to get this sump off, and hopefully the inside is cleaner than the outside, because this is awful. Here is where your old paint cups come in handy. I saved them for bloody yonks and I never use them, and then here we go. Alright. You can't even see half these bolts. You want to make sure that socket is seated properly before you start pulling that trigger. I'm going to work from this side so you can see what's going on. Sorry guys, I'm not used to doing a unedited video, but maybe I'll like it because editing kills me, man. The editing is the biggest thing on this channel, and I dare say on most channels. So what the plan for this thing is, I'm hoping, is diagnose this issue. Fingers crossed it hasn't done any damage to the crankshaft. Roll in a set of bearings, the same as what's in it now. I'm not going to linish the crank, I'm not going to do nothing. Usually you'd linish the crank at a minimum. Engine guys are cringing at my methods, but it's just going to blow out, man. So plan is just, roll some new bearings in. Obviously clean everything up the best you can from the from what we tear down, and then start to reassemble and get this thing to a healthy, basically we're talking like a backyard rebuild or whatever you want to call it that your grandpa would have done back in the shed. Rings and bearings. Hone it with bloody home drill. This is the way they kept motors on the road for a long time, but you're gonna try and do that without an idea, especially if you're chasing horsepower. That's when you start having failures. But what have we got to lose? The motor's already pretty toasted anyway. So we're gonna give it a crack, guys, and we can learn together. But I will say, all my go-to people that I call all the time, you know who you are. People that always help me locally. We're talking Dave Lee, Chris down at Harman Engines. You know, these guys have taught me a lot, and I still don't even know 1% of it, but I know when I'm doing shit wrong, and they're probably cringing. But what I have learned is from you guys, so I always appreciate the help that people give, and never take people's help for granted, because these people have been in the trade for decades, and they don't have to share their knowledge with you guys, you know. So if you ever get someone who wants to help you, you trust their judgment, you got to appreciate that. There's the moment of truth. Interesting. Oh man, this is so gross. Also, the pan's smashed. Someone's bottomed this bad boy out. I'm gonna try and find somewhere to put this thing. This is where everyone needs an apprentice or a trade assistant to clean all these parts. There's hours and hours of cleaning alone. And that's one of the most crucial things with engines. Everything's got to be spotless. Cleanliness. Alright, so now we're looking at the crankshaft. I'm going to show you the play in this thing. It's huge. We're talking about 2mm. I'm hoping that is the thrust bearing. Let's take a look. We're going to go zoom in on this puppy. You can see right here, we've got about a 2mm gap. About 2 mil is a lot of mil. So as you've seen there's about 2mm of play right there, and that's no good. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull that out and see what's going on. Before someone tells me not to use chrome sockets on an impact driver, I'm not ramming it. So here's the rod here sticking out that turns the oil pump, and I shouldn't have tipped that over because it's leaking, but everything here seems alright. It's a little bit grubby, but nothing that I wouldn't be expecting. So now I can clearly access all of this and push that dipstick down. That's the rear main cap. The bearing, which you would have heard people saying the rear main seal's leaking, is right here. And then we got the rest up to the front. And like I said, I think that the middle one there is going to be the culprit. All right, let's get this cap off and see what we're in for. Okay, so we've got the thrust bearing is in place, and it's got a lot of wear. A lot of wear. But I tell you, The crank doesn't look like it's got any damage on it, but I've only had a glance. All right, so as you can see here, this edge here, it's all sort of melted. Not melted, but it's sort of like, you know, it's burred over. That bearing's pretty shagged. All right, so not ideal, but also it could have been worse. Oh, yeah. Look, there's a little bit of, there's a few light scratches around this crankshaft. Oh yeah. Okay.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
So I'm pretty sure the crank's knackered. Man, that sucks. It's worn into the side of the crank. I didn't even spot that straight away, but yeah, that is toast. Absolutely toast, because the thrust bearing is in place, but the crankshaft is eaten. Why is it eating the crank? Oh man, that sucks hard. This is definitely not the result I was after, guys. So we'll see right here how much this has eaten. Right here, look at that. That is a shoulder. A monster shoulder. Can we see that well and truly? Look at the shoulder on that. That is roached. Absolutely not the result we were looking for, guys. I was hoping to see that thrust bearing toasted. I'm going to do a bit of a call around to find out some more information, but I'm sure you guys will have something to say in the comments of why you think this may have happened, because the bearing, like, don't get me wrong, it's worn out, but why did the bearing not get eaten before the crank? Why is that the case? But either way, that sucks, because I've been down this path before with my big block. This big block was built by Dave Lee at Dave Lee Race Engines, and it's been built for a long time. I've got to do my Phoenix to put that in, but that had the same problem. It started off as a 383, and then we found that there was wear in the end of the crank, exactly like this one, and to do the work to repair it was had to be welded and then reground, and there was like $600. This is like 10 years ago. Like $600 just to repair the crank. It was cheaper, not cheaper, but I ended up spending $1,000 on a long block, and I got a full 440. So that's why I went down that path, and here we are all over again. That sucks, because essentially I've got to either throw big money at this thing, or I've got to try and find another crankshaft. And then when you do that, you're going down a whole can of worms. We're talking a big build, man. We're not talking a backyarder here. That sucks, man, because I wanted to get this thing back on the road. Now I do have another 318 over here. This is apparently a runner. Maybe I'll just bite the bullet and give that a lick of paint. Throw some gaskets on the sump and put that in the car. That's the dart out there looking sad. Maybe that's what I do. I've got 318s everywhere, and I've got one runner, so maybe it makes sense that that's what we do. But man, I'm disappointed with that. Look, hey, we'll still save this motor, obviously, because it's a good small block, but maybe some of you may have some parts that can help. Maybe someone has a 318 crank. Whatever, I'm open to suggestions at this point. This is the factory matching motor, but I'm not getting caught up on that stuff. But it would be a shame not to have it back in the car if it's sitting there running anyway. But it's not running yet. So I don't know, guys. Look, that's going to be it for this time round. Bit of a floppy one, bit uneventful. Oh, man, maybe I need to pull the heads and find out how knackered the top end is. But I suppose at this stage it doesn't matter. It's toasted. On the flip side, if you're a machinist or you've done repairs on this, I know they can be welded. I know they can be machined. Maybe something like that. I don't know, guys. Throw out your options to me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you encountered this issue before? How are we going to save this motor? All right, guys. So it's been quite a few hours since I've done all the filming on the teardown of the bottom end of this motor, and I was halfway through the editing, and I decided that I need to know more. I'm itching to find out about what the condition of this motor is like beyond those bearings, because obviously we know that crankshaft now has to either be repaired or replaced. What else am I in for? Am I up for a full, new pistons, new rings? Obviously, we're going to do rings anyway, but how far are we going with this thing? Are the heads fucking rooted or what? So I've decided that for what it's worth, we'll pull this intake off. We'll pull at least one head off and see the condition. We might get a bit of a vague idea of what we've got to play with. These things always snowball. This is the aftermarket intake manifold. It's a Wian dual plane. They seem to be on a lot of 318s. We've bought another one over there, 318 with the same intake. Maybe they're on special. I did inspect the bearings, and it does look like they were factory bearings, so I don't think this motor has ever been rebuilt. I suppose that's a good thing. Well, might have been rebuilt, but it definitely hasn't had bearings put in it, so who knows how good or bad the build was if it was. Oh. And hay fever has hit me with a vengeance since this morning too. Now hopefully that wants to release. There's always something. Oh yeah. Far out. Alright, so one of the first things I've noticed in here, if we look closely, it looks like one of the cam bearings is ready to come out. Oh man, this thing is snowballing. Right here you'll see this little, where are we? You'll see a tiny little shard of metal poking out. Hopefully we can focus on that. Right there. Might be up for a camshaft. This guy's the perfect example of why you don't fix what's not broken. If I hadn't pulled this motor out, I would have never have known. It would have failed eventually. Head's coming off. Alright, so we're up to the head now. I'm going to pull one off only. This should tell us all we need to know. It should tell us, we should be able to measure roughly, or at least get an idea of the compression ratio by how far down the pistons are in the bore. 318s were not known for their compression from factory. So that's where you start shaving heads and decking blocks. And on top of that, We'll see if there's much wear on those bores as well. That was way too tight, guys. Brutal. I'm going to put this puppy. Let's go. Take one step. Woo. All right, so what we've got going on inside, apart from that dodgy cam bearing, which I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a cam bearing. Now it does look like, otherwise it's super sooty. Like the chambers are black as anything. They're open chamber. We've got a fair bit of they've got a fairly big chamber in them. Like you can see, it drops down like that. This here is usually flat with the surface if they're closed chamber. The ports do not seem to be overly impressive, so there's definitely no performance motor. Looking inside the bores here, it doesn't seem to be in too bad a shape. Probably a bit hard to see here. In fact, it's almost impossible to see on film, but it doesn't look too brutal. Slight lip at the top, what you'd expect. The pistons do seem to be dead flat. I'm not sure if that's what they were standard. I need to do a bit more research. And I probably should turn this thing over to see exactly what sort of piston height we're going to end up with, because at the moment the highest one is still like 5mm down the bore, so I dare say it hasn't reached the top just yet. So we'll do that as well. We'll turn it over, because this is, the compression is where your performance is. And obviously we're not going racing, but it would be nice to have a bit more pep. If we're going to be building this thing anyway, we're going to obviously throw a few more compressions at it. Get this thing up to top dead center, which is right there. So we are still a long way down the bore. At a guess, I'm going to say that's about 3mm down the bore. It does look like the valves have actually hit this piston right here. I'm just going to quickly get a bit of a wire wheel and clean this up and see if we can see a marking, see if that's a standard piston or not. Nice. Find a little baby one, but probably should cover the rest of the engine up. Let's just see what this piston says. not sure if I'm going to see. Oh, here we go. An A. Got an A. It's actually come off alright. Another thing you can do is you can test the pistons from the top. Sometimes if an engine is really worn out, they'll rock around, or you can get some movement out of it. But this is sealing up pretty good. It's got no slop in it, and I had the engine turned over. All the oil had run into the bores from the underside, and there was nothing dripping through. Obviously, it's dripped through now that I've turned it back, but when it was upside down, it was sealed up. So these rings are holding up. So hopefully that's a telltale sign that the bores are in reasonable shape. I mean, I don't know what a factory piston looks like, but it looks like it's got I swear it looks like the valves are touched, eh? Would that bend a valve instantly? I don't know. There's an A on it. I've got to research this stuff. I don't know what A is. Yeah, no doubt. Chrysler guru already knows what the A stands for. Hopefully it's not something too obvious. I'm like an idiot right now. Alright, so as you can see here, we've got an A stamped right there. And these marks here do not look like they've been machined. I reckon we've had some valves touching, because all of them have the same. You can sort of see that one there. But yeah, that's it. Flat top, but it is down the bore. This is as high as it gets, and we're still 2.5-3 millimeters down the bore. So that is going to be absolutely junk for compression. What do you do? How far do you go? Considering I was not interested in even pulling this motor apart, I was happy with the car, how it went. But when you're into it, the ball starts to roll, and yeah, where do you stop? But we'll have to further diagnose this another day. This is all I had time for now, but I'm sort of feeling a little bit better about the rotating assembly in the way of sort of pistons and bores and stuff. But yeah, still pretty bummed that that crank is knackered, and looks like the cam's coming out as well. This is what happens with old cars. Looks like it hasn't been built. Someone's definitely done some work to it, but I don't think the motor's had anything too substantial done to it. So anyway, that's it for this time around, guys. Bit of a different video for me. Like I said, unedited, probably a bit boring for everyone, but we'll give it a crack, man. Here's the heads. Here's the engine. There's so much to do now. It's not going to be till next year, no doubt, because we're getting that time of year, silly season. But that's it for this time around, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of this video, and we'll see you all on an upcoming episode. Cheers, guys.